In every NFL season, the following question arises: how long will the final undefeated team last? This question can be put to rest as early as week 4, like we saw in 2010 and 2014. But every once in a while, there's a team, like the Steelers in 2020, that pull within 5 games of the perfect regular season. They started 11-0 that year, only to finish 12-4. Then they lost to their rival Cleveland in the first round of the playoffs. Out of curiosity, I looked up how many times an NFL team has started 11-0, and in the 56 Super Bowl years, 12 other seasons have seen a team reach this point, which ranges from franchises that won it all to even a team that failed to make the playoffs. In today's video, we will briefly look over all the other teams that started 11-0 or better and see how their seasons finished. But first, isn't it great that this long offseason is finally coming to an end? Football season is here, and this year, put your football knowledge to the test for a chance to win $1 million. That's right, $1 million, with today's video sponsor, Run Your Pool. Run Your Pool is the home of competition, bringing sports fans together to compete, connect, and make every game matter. Run Your Pool offers every game type you can think of, from Pick'em and Survivor to fantasy pools. It's a true one-stop shop for sports gaming with customizable features you don't get anywhere else. The team at Run Your Pool is doubling down their NFL Pick'em Palooza this year and offering 2 chances to take home a whole lot of cash. How do you enter? It's simple. Sign up for the free-to-enter contest at the link in my description and pick 6 NFL games every single week. If you get hot, you'll be winning some cold hard cash. For each week in a row that you go perfect, the prizes go up. And if you go perfect 6 weeks straight, you're going to take home $1 million. So check out Run Your Pool Pick'em Palooza and prove your picks by clicking the link down below. 1967 was the first year of the Super Bowl era, and the Baltimore Colts, led by head coach Don Shula and quarterback Johnny Unitas, came out the gate strong with an 11-0-2 record. Even though they tied twice in those 13 games, they didn't lose, so I put them on here. In their final game, they went up against their division opponent, the Los Angeles Rams, and lost. Crazy enough, only division winners made the playoffs back in 1967, and because these 2 franchises possess the same record, the Colts missed the postseason due to a tiebreaker. Don Shula's club was pretty devastated by this. Then in 1969, the Rams themselves started 11-0, led by MVP quarterback Roman Gabriel, and the best passing offense in the NFL, but they lost in their final 3 regular season games, and then they continued along the same path, losing in their first playoff matchup. So a pretty rough start to this video so far. The following year, the NFL and AFL would merge, bringing the total franchises in the newly formed league to 26. That first season, no one was safe, as the last undefeated teams only made it to 3 games. The next team to achieve at least an 11-0 record was a team who hadn't been very relevant till the 1970s. That was the Miami Dolphins in 1972. I just previously mentioned how Don Shula led the Colts a few years prior. After a fallout with them, Shula took the reins to a young Dolphins franchise, and he developed them into the most complete team in the league in just a few short years. Larry Zonka, Mercury Morris, and Jim Kick made up the top rushing offense in football. And despite starting quarterback Bob Greasy breaking his ankle in week 5, backup Earl Morrall played at an all-pro level. How crazy is that? Combine this number 1 ranked offense with the number 1 ranked defense, and what do you get? The perfect 17-0 season. They had their fair share of close calls, coming from behind to beat the Vikings in week 3 and versus the Jets in week 10. Then in the playoffs, the Dolphins put together a game-winning drive late in the 4th versus the Browns in the divisional round. Going from bottom feeders to 17-0 in just a few years with a backup quarterback proved how good of a coach Don Shula was. In fact, nobody would get even close to the same success until 1984, when the Dolphins, still under Don Shula, started 11-0. The game had evolved, and Miami's once heavy rushing attack had morphed into an all-out air raid with young star quarterback Dan Marino. Marino, in his second season, had not only proven his worth as a late first-round pick, but he had made every team who passed on him regret that decision.
Reno has time, he goes deep, has Duper has
With Pro Bowl receivers Mark Clayton and Mark Duper, the Miami offense torched defenses through the air, putting up modern-day Big 12-like numbers. It wasn't until Game 12 where somebody finally defeated Marino at his own game. It literally took a 380-yard, 4-touchdown performance by Dan Fouts and the Air Coryell vertical schemes that the Chargers were running at the time. The 1984 Dolphins would finish 14-2, setting the all-time record for points scored in a season, and Marino became the first 5,000-yard passer in league history. But here's the craziest part. They weren't even considered the best team in the NFL. That was actually the 15-1 San Francisco 49ers, who had the second best offense behind Miami, along with the best defense in football. These two teams met up in the Super Bowl, and the Dolphins were no match for the Niners, as they got blown out, and Dan Marino, the promising young quarterback, would never return to another Super Bowl. The phrase "defense wins championships" rung true in that matchup, and no phrase could better define the next team on this list, which was the 1985 Bears. After the 1984 Bears fell prey to the dominant Niners team in the playoffs, the 85 team went to the drawing board and decided to make their top 3 ranked defense even stronger, and they drafted interior lineman William the Refrigerator Perry, who proved to be a total beast in many ways. And with so much defensive talent already, with guys like Richard Dent, Steve McMichael, and Mike Singletary, defensive coordinator Buddy Ryan installed the now famous 46 defense. The 46 Bear defense was a shift off the original base 4-3, where 2 linebackers would come up to the line of scrimmage, and a safety would come up to linebacker depth. It's a very aggressive defensive formation designed to put major pressure on the offense, and in 1985, almost nobody could figure out how to beat it. Now pair that with an offense that was firing on all cylinders behind Pro Bowl quarterback Jim McMahon and Hall of Fame running back Walter Payton, and you get a team that's nearly unbeatable. The 1985 Bears started 12-0 and looked destined to match the 72 Dolphins, but in Week 13, the Dolphins, led by Dan Marino, defended their honor and became the one and only team to crack that defense. Dan Marino may have not matched the 72 Dolphins performance, but he sure was the gatekeeper from the 85 Bears entering the perfect season club. The Bears wrapped up the regular season at 15-1 with the best team in football, and their playoff run was the stuff of legend. Shutout, shutout, blowout, and the Bears captured their first and only Super Bowl crown. But all good things must come to an end. The Bears would not return to the Super Bowl with Mike Ditka and Buddy Ryan leading the way, and the NFL wouldn't see another 11-0 start until 1991.
And every single swinging guy starts with teams. Let's hit it rolling now. Let's earn this thing today. Nothing gets away from us. Let's earn it today, okay? It's our turn.
Great things we can be doing today, and the best one is kicking their ass. Yes, baby.
Rippon is going deep, and wide open is Gary Clark. He'll score.
The Washington Redskins had won 2 Super Bowls in the 80s, but 1991 was their best roster yet. With a Hall of Fame level coach in Joe Gibbs, the most dominant offensive line unit in the Hogs, who literally have their own Wikipedia page, and the most complete roster in the league with names like Mark Rippon, Ernest Biner, Gary Clark, Darrell Green, and Charles Mann, Washington seemed destined to go undefeated, until division rivals Dallas and Philadelphia put a stop to that. But despite losing these 2 games, the Redskins were far and away the Super Bowl favorites, and they blew out everyone in the playoffs on their way to winning it all. With the best offense, the second best defense, an average winning margin of nearly 17 points, and a turnover ratio of +18, they have been ranked by multiple sources as one of the greatest teams of all time, and Football Outsiders graded them as the greatest team of all time based on advanced analytics. 7 years after the 91 Redskins, the Broncos became the next team to reach the 11-game mark. They were coming off a Super Bowl win the previous year, and their legendary quarterback John Elway came back for one final hoorah. At the age of 38, Elway was still playing at a high level, especially because he had his excellent O-line and star pass catchers Rod Smith, Ed McCaffrey and Shannon Sharp. But the spotlight that year was really on star running back Terrell Davis, who went on to win league MVP after rushing for over 2,000 yards. Also, their defense was ruthless and intimidating with guys like Bill Romanowski and Steve Atwater. With an average winning margin of 12 points a game, the '98 Broncos started 13-0, which was the best start since the perfect '72 Dolphins. But in Game 14 versus the mediocre Giants, New York battled all game long. And down 3, starting on their own 12-yard line with less than 2 minutes left, Kent Graham led a legendary drive, capping it off with this sweet moment.
Graham gonna go for it all. One's official ruled touchdown, the other ruled out of bounds. And it is ruled a touchdown.
Talk about unbelievable. Games like this started to give this team their reputation as the New York Giant Killers, and we will see more evidence of this later in the video. Now, for Denver, they would turn it on when it mattered most. In the playoffs, they blew out the Dolphins, cruised through the Jets, and finally, they defeated the Falcons in the Super Bowl. This sealed their fate as back-to-back Super Bowl champions, and former #1 overall pick John Elway called it a career, riding off into the sunset with a Super Bowl MVP. Once again, 7 years would pass before the next team would match this 11-0 start. And it also took another #1 overall pick, Peyton Manning, and the 2005 Colts. Manning had officially entered his prime, coming off of back-to-back MVP seasons. The Colts possessed not only the most unstoppable offense with Edgerrin James, Reggie Wayne, and Marvin Harrison, but they also had gone from a mediocre defense to the second best scoring defense in football, with dudes like Bob Sanders and Dwight Freeney. But even when their defense would let them down, their offense would always win the shootout. And through 13 games, these Colts were unbeatable. And they also started 13-0, only to be bested by Drew Brees and the Chargers. Indianapolis would finish 14-2, with their eyes on taking down New England. But before they got the chance for that, they found themselves fighting for their lives versus the Steelers. The Colts looked like they were surely going to lose after a turnover on downs with less than 2 minutes to play. But just watch this.
They got to keep him out of the end zone. Dennis. Fumble the ball! Picked up by Nick Harper. Oh my, Harper with Roethlisberger to beat. Roethlisberger makes the tackle at the 43-yard line. Can you believe this?
The stadium had come back to life. Surely the Colts would at least tie that game, right? Well, unfortunately for them, they missed a field goal as time expired and left Colts fans heartbroken. This has to be the most underrated play of Big Ben's career. If he doesn't trip that dude up, he might have taken it to the house, and the Colts probably would have won. Oddly enough, their team got slightly worse the following year, and that's when they went on to win it all. Funny how football works sometimes. Of course, there might not be a more shocking example of how ludicrous the NFL can be than in 2007. The Patriots, who were already predicted to be Super Bowl contenders, pulled off 2 trades that, retrospectively, are the greatest additions to a receiver room that I've ever seen. They traded for Wes Welker and Randy Moss. And 2007 saw what Tom Brady, with Hall of Fame level weapons, could do. He threw for 50 passing touchdowns, and the Patriots finished with a perfect 16-0 finish to the regular season. Their offense scored more points than that '84 Dolphins team, and their average margin of victory was the biggest of any team in this video, which was nearly 20 points a game. They also had 10 guys make All-Pro in 2007, which is incredible. But of course, you all know what's coming. They lost in the Super Bowl to the Giants, who barely made the playoffs, and the receiver who made the biggest catch in that game, David Tyree, had only had 4 catches for 35 yards the entire season. It's gotta be the craziest upset in NFL history. Then, 2 years after that game, we witnessed not just one team, but 2 nearly go undefeated. At one point, the Saints and the Colts were both 13-0. And without each other in their paths to the Super Bowl, there was a high possibility that we saw 2 undefeated teams make that game. But the Saints fell to the Dallas Cowboys in Game 14, and the Colts who actually started 14-0, were safely in the playoffs and they decided to sit their starters. And they lost the last 2 games. Actually, both teams rested their starters as they safely made it into the playoffs. And many expected these two to end up playing each other in the Super Bowl, and that's just what happened. It was the matchup that we all saw coming. After falling behind early, the Saints started the second half with a gutsy onside kick, which they recovered, and they set the tone from there, going on to defeat the Colts 31-17. Honestly, it seems highly unlikely that we will see 2 teams in the same season reach at least 13-0 like we saw in 2009. So that's pretty cool that it happened. Now, 2 years after that, Aaron Rodgers had risen up to the top of the NFL. He took home a Super Bowl in the 2010 season, and in 2011, he led Green Bay to 13 straight wins, knocking on the door to the perfect season. Then, the Kyle Orton-led Chiefs pulled off the improbable win in Game 14. The Packers would finish 15-1, with an amazing 35 points per game that was second only to the 07 Patriots. And Rodgers would put up a touchdown to interception ratio that was video game-like. This was all for nothing though, as they became the first 15-1 team ever to lose in their first playoff game, which, of course, was the Giants. Reports came out after this game that players were, quote, out of rhythm from taking the last few games off, which showed up as receivers dropping crucial passes and uncharacteristic turnovers. For those of you watching this video, what do you think about this? Do you think that resting your starters before the playoffs is a good or bad thing? Comment down below. 4 seasons after the disappointing 2011 Packers, the surprise of the NFL was the Panthers. The previous year, they had gone 7-8-1, with Cam Newton's worst season of his young career. Also, going into the 2015 season, they lost their top wide receiver Kelvin Benjamin to a torn ACL, and they also waived longtime running back D'Angelo Williams. So, people were shocked to say the least when Carolina rattled off 14 straight wins to start 2015. Cam was unstoppable, and the defense, featuring Luke Kuechly, Josh Norman, Kurt Coleman, and Thomas Davis, wreaked havoc as they forced more turnovers than any team in football. This unique offense, combined with a turnover-hungry defense, looked surefire to go undefeated. But it all ended in Game 15 to division rival Atlanta, who managed to shut Cam down and do just enough to seal the upset. The Panthers would finish 15-1. And found themselves hanging on for dear life against Seattle in the divisional round. Then they blew out Arizona in the NFC Championship. But they met their match in the Super Bowl, where the Denver Broncos managed to force 4 turnovers, including 2 strip sacks. So, all in all, these 14 individual teams that started 11-0 had quite a bit of variation. 9 went on to make it to 12-0, 4 made it to 14-0, 2 finished the regular season undefeated, and only 1, the 72 Dolphins, finished the entire season perfect. Also, this video shows an important fact when it comes to sports. Often, it's not about how you start, it's how you finish. Of the 14, only 5 went on to win the Super Bowl. So if your team starts 11-0 this year, they still only have a 35% chance of becoming Super Bowl champions. And that number is probably much lower if they have to run into the Giants.
Get out of bounds. They're going to have a chance for Lawrence Stein-Silver. We have 55-yard drive from here, and now instead they're going for it all. The pass